At last I'm going to start putting this fork back together. Make it look like a bike. So if you remember, I turned this shaft down when I was repairing it, and now it's slightly undersized by about 1/2 mil. So I just need to shim it, which I've done around here already. There we go, camera's focused in there. So that's now shimmed, good to go, and this one is rock solid now, so I'm just going to cut a piece of shim steel, put that in there. And the other thing it's worth doing is fitting it onto the central shaft, because sometimes this can be a bit tight on there, and it's easier to do it on the bench just to check it and it's going to go on okay. Once we've done that, I'm good to put it in the bike. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is get some grease in there, which I've got down here. Get plenty of that in there. So plenty of grease before you put your balls in. Like that. Right, once you've got that all greased up, we can wheel in the steering head. Gently poke that up in there. Making sure not to bash any bearings out of the way, the balls. Yep. I'll get the oil damper on the top here. And I hope it goes on. I'll do for the moment. Right, so that's on. Just make sure that there's no up and down play on it. It will of course tighten up once we put that T-piece in there and get this big nut on the top there. Now I can't find the big nut that goes on here, so I'm going to have to make one. Now it's basically an M26 nut that's rounded off at the bottom here, and then there's a flat pieces on top, as you'll probably see on your one, with a hole through the middle to take the friction disc adjuster on it. So what I've decided to do is take an I think it's M20, something like that, I'm not sure, maybe a bit bigger, M24 or something, bore out the middle, and then we'll stick a thread up through the middle, round off some of this section, and then we'll weld on a little, like a washer type plate at the top, and then we'll just grind it all up to shape. Right, so this is the big nut, and you can see I've put an M26x1 thread through the middle of it, and turn down some of the edge. Next I've cut a piece of thick flat bar, which I'm going to weld onto here, and then drill a hole through the middle, the correct size, through there, and then we'll just shape it up to match the rest of the nut. We'll turn it off on the lathe, just tidy it up a bit, and that'll be that done. Next up we need to get this piece down in here. He says, can't even get it out, there we go. So that bashes down in there. A bit of an awkward fit actually. So I'm going to fiddle around with that for a bit. And it goes in better one way than the other for some reason. There you go, snugly down in there now. And that locks the two together. Now we just need to put on that big nut. So when assembling this top one, obviously we need to put the bolt through and then check the bushings, which I should have done before, to be honest, because if I get this in focus, you can see there's about 1/4 mil play either side to 1/2 mil in total, which means the bushings are worn in there. Can't quite see them, but down in there there's bronze bushes, so we have to make some new ones of them. I was just about to press this in, and I noticed inside there's actually a piece of steel shims here. So someone's been at this before, and that explains as well why there's so much wear on this shaft. So that's about, it's just slightly under that, I can feel it. So I'm going to have to fix that as well. It's a bit annoying. Is the new front fork bolt. I did try to repair the other one actually, which is here, and I put a bit of weld around it and turned it back down on the lathe, and it kind of was okay, but I don't know, just decided to make another one. Anyway, yeah, so made a new one, and the brass bushes, bronze bushes, here we go. They're actually brass, but it's quite a nice fit actually. Back a bit. Almost no play in it as well, which is good. Just slides through. So I'm really happy with that. So now I'm going to put it all back on the front fork, and hopefully we won't have any play in it this time. There's the new bolt through. It's actually really nice there. There's no play whatsoever. It's absolutely spot on. So I'm happy with that. Now I've just got to fix this front fork. This has been bugging me for ages. Let me just go over to it. Right, here it is. Oh, if you remember, this is rusted out. There you go. I took that off. Got a new one which was down there. And I'm just going to work out how to whereabouts this goes, because even a couple of millimetres or so, I think, will push the wheel out of alignment. So I'm kind of a bit nervous about tack welding that on for now, so I know it's exactly the same place it needs to be, or the original was. So ideally I'd assemble the wheel first and then just line up the wheel and make sure it spins dead centre or not an angle, but that's on working on the basis of course that the wheel is dead straight, which is highly unlikely. Anyway, it's got to be fixed. I've taken a bit of a stick here and sanded in a groove in there, which then fits around that bolt quite nicely, stop it moving. And then I can mark down here, because ultimately it's the distance between those top bolts that matters. So if I mark down there. Right, well that didn't go well. Oh, it's one problem after another as usual with these things. Well, as any bike really, isn't it? It's been beaten up like this one has. So I went to fit the front spindle and couldn't get the wheel on, which is really weird, and I got a feeling now that the front fork has bent in slightly or too much. So I'm going to have to take it all apart again. You can see that it's now missing again, because that came off after I was smacking it around. So I take it apart, have a look at the fork geometry. I seem to remember now that it was 2 years ago, of course, that it had a crack in it and a weld. That's tied it up a bit, so it's obviously pulled itself in a bit, I think. I don't know. It did occur to me I had the wrong bolt, but I don't think I have. Anyway, so that's where I am at the moment. Right, so this shows you just how far out it is. I worked out that the axle sticks out by 8 threads from the other side. And that's how far out it seems to be, which is weird because when you actually look at it, it doesn't actually look like it's buckled or bent in any way. So I'm a bit perplexed at the moment. That's exactly what it is, but it must be. Time to ponder, I think. Back. Amazing what a quick cup of tea can do to the thought process. Right, I warmed up a bit, and I put the car jack
trolley jack between it there and spread it open a bit. Overstretched it slightly and then relaxed it back down. And lo and behold, we're in. So there's still a bit of tension on there, but there's obviously supposed to be. So it's, I think we were 30 mils short and I brought it out to about 20, I don't know, a couple about 10, maybe 10 mil under or something like that. Either way, it was enough just to nip the thread on there, which then, as you tighten it, of course, it pulls it out. I still think I need to look at this side, which has got clearly a bit of a bend in it. It's just going to make it difficult to get the wheel on and off. So I might try and straighten that on the vise or something like that in a minute with a bit of heat. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the hub itself actually runs true. So I've stuck it on the lathe here. So I'm okay with that. And now I'm going to shove it back into the front fork on the spindle and line it up. Right, I've figured out a reasonable way to get the geometry right on the front of this, I think. So I found the centre of the axle between that part of the frame and that part of the frame, and I've marked it there. I've then checked that that's true on the lathe, the hub, and then I've worked out the centre of up here, which I've also marked with a line. Ignore that one, it's that one. So all I need to do now is check that the gap between there and the white bit of metal is exactly the same up there. And that gives us a good indication of how parallel the fork is. So I think I've got it sussed now. And then I just need to tack weld in there this piece on. And then I think finally I can start assembling this thing. It's been a bit of a bugbear because it was so badly buckled before, and hopefully that'll be all right. Oh dear, I've literally spent 8 hours fighting with this thing and trying to, I know it's a ridiculous amount of time, but I'm trying to get this straight. The wheel is perfectly straight now and it looks fine when you're riding on it in this perspective. Pretty okay with that. It's just slightly offset still from that centre line. Let's find something to point with. Here we go. So there to there, and you can see it on that fork to that one. Finally, absolutely finally, if I manage to get this half decent, I'm just going to give this a little bit of a protection with some red oxide. So we can paint that up later. Okay, so up next is the front fork on. I've got some of it on already. I'm just going to put a little shim in there just to tighten a little space out there, a little tiny one. It'll probably close up when I tighten this anyway, but so I'm going to put one in there anyhow. Then I'm going to put the springs in, which I hate doing these. You fiddle around for ages. That's if you've already spent hours trying to get them in there. Just seems such a weird design, this. Ideally you'd have washers in there as well, I think, but still, they are what they are. Idea to put this on as well, the bottom of the oil damper, get that nice and tight and sealed up. Right, get on with some of these bolts in here and get this front fork assembled properly now. Okay, I'm going to put the springs in now. You'll notice that I've decided to put a bit of tape around these just to stop those dropping in like that. It's a real pain. Also, you can kind of use that bit of tape to wobble the bolt around. And the top ones are shorter than the bottom ones. And each one, I don't know if you can see in there. Try and get back up. There you go. I've cut a slot just in the top of the bolt head, so that when they're in there I can poke a little tiny screwdriver through and just so I can tighten up the nut easy enough. On this top one I'm going to put some lock nuts on there I know they're not great, but a bit safer and not have to worry about them coming undone. This could be a bit fiddly, so here goes, see how we get on.